How's it going, guys? I'm super excited. I got something a little different this time. I sat down and talked with Neeher, a top mod author, who does mostly animation, and he has 70 mods on the Nexus. Not only that, he works with Sim Settlements and Fallout London, both of which have releases coming this year. It's a busy year for Bethesda fans. Not only that, we talked about AI, we talked about 3D modeling, we talked about games he's playing. It's just all around a great conversation. It was wonderful to have him as my first live interview. So please leave comments down below for any questions or critiques. This is my first time. With that said, please enjoy.
Hey there.
Nice to meet you, Neeher.
Yeah, likewise. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Shiloh?
Fair enough. Shiloh.
33?
Yeah, it's Shiloh MC33. Just Shiloh's fine. I think people deduced my name. Yeah, I was doing voice acting for quite a bit there. So they say if you do any social media and whatnot, you should have a handled name, but I already screwed that up. So if people want to chase me down, they can find me. So yeah, tell me about yourself. How'd you get into modding?
Really started in Fallout 4, but before that, Fallout 3, I'd mess around with the GEC,
Mm-hmm.
And then didn't really get that into it. I messed around with stuff and installed some other mods for people. And then Fallout 4 came out, and I was like, I think now's the time to get into it. Yeah, I was right. It seems like it's a lot better in Fallout 4 than it is for Fallout 3.
Even with Skyrim too, the CK had some pretty significant changes.
Yeah.
Think of it right now. I ran into it. Oh, you probably know, but I mean, you have 70 uploads for mods? So I think you know better than I do. Yeah, I have to do some research, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Fallout 4 modder in Skyrim. And I didn't even really look at, dialogues, scenes, and stuff prior to Fallout 4. Not really knowledgeable on that front for previous games.
But it must have been a big jump between Fallout 3 and Fallout 4.
Yeah, I mean, Fallout 3, I didn't even look at the dialogue systems there. And that, I was mostly messing around with changing forms and making a new interiors and stuff like that. I remember following those old Bethesda-made tutorials back in the day, like a GEC website or something.
Yeah, like I remember I did the build your own basically cave in Skyrim. That's where I started.
Yeah,
in cave house.
In Fallout 3 it was a vault.
Oh.
Make your own vault, pretty much.
A cave with metal.
Yeah. A metal cave, yep.
So I already alluded, I mean, you have so many mods, and they're not just simple script mods. You do, it looks like animation and some textures on there too. If you had to pick what's your specialty in modding? I know that's a weird question for a lot of modders because, it's a hobby a lot of the time. So they don't really have a view that I'm a specialist at anything, but I mean, you pumped out a lot of mods, so.
Yeah, I'd say it's my specialty. I guess when people think of things I do, it's going to be animation. That's my favorite thing, actually, anyway.
And what do you use for the animation? 3D Max or? Yeah,
3ds Max for animating.
Is it 2013 or 2014?
I use 2015 for
2015.
animating.
Oh, okay.
2013 is if you're doing 3D modeling and need to export it to make it game ready and stuff. The proper way, anyway. There's many other ways. You can use Blender even.
Oh, you can. So there's a way. See, I play around with Blender, do CAD work. I can deal with 2D stuff, but Blender I'm very new at. And 3D Max, I'm not going to pay for that software.
Yeah, I've never used Blender ever, but I know there's like plugins and stuff so that you can export it for Fallout 4 or whatever, Skyrim even.
Pretty cool, all the plugins people have made for modding in general. Just like real niche stuff to go ahead and make it usable for just like that Blender, a company that's not proprietary.
Yeah.
They can just have free reign over.
Yeah, I remember looking at Blender a long time ago and I was like, this doesn't really look like it's for me. And then you look how far it's come and you're like, wow, this is actually powerful stuff.
Yep. The tool's only as good as its user. So yeah, I've looked at Blender a couple times. I've started their little donut tutorial. I forget the name of the guy.
I've had my friend. She did the donut tutorial as well, and then a bunch of other stuff. And now she's really good at Blender.
I got the frosting on, and then I was like, oh, I'll get back to this. And then the next time I got on, I'm like, oh crap, I forget all the commands to do everything. So I have to sit there and watch the first hour again. Yeah, that's how weak my strength was at it.
Got to burn it into your mind. Remember all the things.
It's super cool though that you can have the 3D studio like that. I don't know if you know X4 Foundations. It's a decent space game.
No, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, so it's kind of flies under the radar for a lot of people, but everything they've switched to is like Blender or things that no company owns. Just because they've been burned so many times by companies closing, or like Star Citizen, where they'll invest in where they're like, oh, this company is going to do all this so great, and then they're like, they ran out of money and they're closing down now, so we need to scrap those 2 years of work. It's like, oh. So yeah, I think that's the smart way to go, to control your own technology. Bethesda gets a lot of crap for having their little janky CK, but they own it, so they can upgrade it all they want.
I never want them to change it or change to something else.
Well, I do have that question. If you had anything for them to fix, besides crashes, of course, what would be the top priority for you?
I don't know about fixes. I mean, my creation kit is really dialed in. It never crashes. I don't have any problems with that. And while there are ways, of course, to make it crash, I know what causes it, and I don't do that. And so I think the only thing that bothers me with the CK is just it takes forever. If it was faster and more fluid to use, less waiting, that's what would be really nice. I don't like having it's the computer. It should be waiting for me. I shouldn't have to wait for it.
That's right. I don't know what year of our lives where that changed. There was that time where it was like waiting for the dial-up AOL.
Yep, had that.
But now it's like we get enraged if we click it and nothing happens for a split second.
I'm like, come on.
What are you talking about, loading screen? But yeah, so the CK, it's funny you say that, because I just switched graphic cards, but before I had was it 1070 Ti or something like that. It would crash on me constantly, and I changed it out for a 3070, and I haven't had a single crash since. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I wonder if it really kind of depends on the RAM on the graphics card itself, but a huge difference. I think I've had one crash, but I knew that was just because I left it open for too long and I was trying to use it.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, before I had a 1080 Ti, and I didn't really encounter questions on that, but that was also a pretty overpowered card for the time. And then I went to 3080 when that came out, and there's no more, or not really any crashes. It's really in the NVIDIA control panel. You can fine tune a lot of the settings for the application, and you can make it the render window like butter smooth and really nice, and it just never crashes. And that's what I meant by it being dialed in.
I may have to, because I did do NVIDIA 3D thing for just getting performance out of my card, but I didn't even think about the actual settings within the CK you can change.
No, within NVIDIA control panel.
Oh, okay, so it is the control panel.
Settings, yeah.
Well, I may have to ask for some tips on that. What's the number one thing that takes to crashing?
I think, well, in terms of hardware or a hardware setting, you would want to have the power management, if I remember correctly, set to maximum performance. That's a big one. Then probably like turning VSync off or something.
Yeah, VSync. I still don't know half those things, like anti-aliasing and all those things. I'm like, wait, what is this? Oscillating whatever. And Side question: what games are you playing now? I mean, I know it's hard between modding and King Gath is, I'm sure, pushing for some animation stuff.
I'm being pushed on many fronts for stuff. Yeah, I guess games that I play most commonly is Apex Legends. I want to just break from stuff and just play a couple matches of that. Another game would be like the new Dead Space remake. I recently beat that.
Oh, yeah, I definitely want to make time for that. I remember when those first came out.
Yeah, I've played them all, and when they came out, they're all amazing. And the new one is really well done. It's very, very impressive. You hear remake and you're like, I don't know. Hopefully it stays true to the original concept, and it really does. It's amazing.
And I've heard that for the Resident Evil one that came out just recently.
Yeah, that just came out Friday, I think Friday. And then I have a couple friends that have played it, and they've been loving it. It's also a really well made remake, just like Dead Space.
Just waiting for that Fallout one to pop out.
I don't know. I don't see Fallout 3 remake ever happening, or even Fallout 4, a proper Fallout 4 remake. Probably not ever going to happen.
Just probably because of how much they would have to re-pathway all those dialogue, the animations. It's not just a linear game.
It'll be pretty tough.
I'll still hold out hope.
You know what? Sure, yeah. I'll do the same. Fallout 3.
There is modders for apparently all those, Sky Oblivion and all that, but you can't really bank on those. No offense to them. I love that they're doing it, but those are huge projects.
Yeah, those are pretty monumental, and they've been working on that for several years now.
Almost since they came out.
I don't know. Yeah, pretty much.
Well, the gameplay, I mean, what we've seen I was switching to Starfield. Should give you that preamble. The animations we've seen, a pretty decent difference between Fallout 4 and at least what we're seeing in the trailers of gameplay. What are you most surprised about with those? Or also, what do you think needs the most work?
It's tough to say. I mean, there's a lot of motion capture in there. Mm-hmm. And mocap is mocap. It's pretty solid on that front. When it comes to changing stuff, or you mean what they need to go back and work on?
Yeah, what kind of jumped out at you? Because I know some people were saying the jump packs, the first one they saw looked a little janky how the movement worked. Yeah. And then when they saw it in the background while Todd was talking for the most recent release where they talked about September, you can see that there was obviously 60 frames and it was a lot more fluid of how they were moving from side to side. It didn't look like there was just two animations for it. That's kind of what I was shooting for with that question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, the jump pack does jump out at you,
no pun intended.
From that, when you're going from sprinting to the state of initiating the jetpack to the state of you're now going forward in the jetpack. When you look at Fallout 4, there is only those three states, because in the power armor, it's you're going into it, you're in it, and then you're landing, or falling and then landing. It looks like they added tons of more variation so you can really control it. I don't expect it to be say, Dead Space when you go into 0G.
Right.
That's amazing.
Oh, I want to play it now.
Yeah, I mean, you run around the 0G, it's crazy. I guess other than that, I do want to see more of how the jetpack works. When they first did the reveal, it was pretty kind of unnatural almost feeling, but then as you mentioned, in the more recent video, it looks a lot better.
Yeah, it almost looked like he kind of went like a tabletop. The first one was he just went straight, he's laying on his belly.
Superman.
Yeah, Supermaning it.
Other than that, I think the guns, when they were firing the guns, they felt like they didn't have enough oomph to them, I guess, to say. The shotgun looked good, though, except for the rifle rounds it was loaded with. But,
that's right, this giant, 7.62 cannon, yeah.
100% sure they've fixed that since. Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty good. All the animation looks pretty top notch. the Bethesda, they have their own feel, especially in first person animation. They'll have a certain feel to them, and it feels consistent as like an evolution of Fallout 4. So that style is what I really like. I'm just glad it's not like Call of Duty's over the top, tough and rigid, slamming things around, and super shaky and just extreme. That style is impressive, but it's not Bethesda.
Not at all. They're never shot for realism in that aspect, and that's great. There's enough of that.
Yep.
Yeah, there's nothing like a Bethesda game with all its jank in the first place. It's incredible to think, like, it never crashed for me when it came out, but there was always like a plethora of bugs that have stuck throughout. To me, it always seems like they get 90% of the way through on getting rid of the bugs, and then they're kind of like, yeah, that's good. I think we're good there. But
well, yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say, especially with all the different computer setups you can have. At least it's tougher on PC than in console or something. And console is going to be their main concern at launch anyway.
I do wonder about that. How well, I think they said the X series is possible, but I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be not a last gen console game.
Yeah, unless they do some serious cyberpunk jank, which it quite possibly could. Yeah, it's going to be interesting seeing, especially with they had 60 frames running. It looked pretty clean in the background. I mean, some of those scene shots they had it was a Bethesda game, but almost mixed with, I don't want to say No Man's Sky, but there was that feel of more color, more vibrancy around everything than there was in Fallout.
Yeah, Fallout 4, if you look at it just vanilla, it's pretty washed out. It's pretty bland. I have a very simple, sweet effects mod that sharpens things and makes it look much more normal, I'd say.
Yeah.
Fallout 4 is pretty washed out.
And Fallout 3 was green tint, and Skyrim, it had a little more color, but they go very modest with their color palette.
True. Yeah. But the new one is looking much more modern, I would say. It feels more, I guess vibrant is the way to go with it. That's a good way of describing it.
And for the animation packages, what do you think is going to be different with the animations in the CK as far as adapting them to mods and integration? Do you think they're going to follow pretty much the creation kit now, or do you think there's going to be a certain upgrade, or there's just going to be more AI packages in general?
You want to know AI packages or gun animations or character animation? Which one are you going for?
Both. Sorry, I could have made that more cohesive. That's what happens when I go off script. My brain starts wandering as I'm talking. But yes, any within the animation, because as we've seen, there's a lot more going on at the animation side. There's a lot more variety. There's mocap. I mean, how do they integrate the mocap with it? Because animation is definitely not my bag. I do not know much about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, currently in Fallout 4, it's Havoc engine. It handles all the animation, behavior, AI. It does all of that pretty much. And Havoc is it's pretty limited. It's tough to add anything new that it could do. In fact, I'd say you pretty much can't currently. You can only go off what they've already done and laid out. And you can duplicate that and make it standalone. Like that's how a gun mod works. Pretty much. It expects these files, and you have to have those files named the same way, and it will find them because that's just how they have the Havoc engine and the creation engine talking to each other, I guess. And in the CK, it bridges the gap pretty much with subgraphs and stuff. So what I'd say is that in Starfield, since what I heard is they're not using Havoc anymore, they've developed a new system of some kind that should be hopefully a lot more open and allow you to do new things should you have the knowledge of how to do it.
So the limit of the Havoc kind of is why people had to do extender type scripts for animation. Am I getting that right?
I'm not sure there's any. I've never used Script Extender for any mod ever,
Oh,
so I don't
interesting.
know on that. But basically, when you make a new gun mod, you tell it, here's the folder with all my animation files. It reads the name of each file, and it's like, okay, so that does this, that does that, and it kind of just meshes it all together into one cohesive gun mod, pretty much. And the behaviors, the Havoc behavior allow the game to know when to do something. Like you told it to reload, so it's going to do the reload, and then it'll return back to its various states. And it's pretty overly complicated. And I'm really just curious to see what they do with Starfield now that they're not using Havoc, because I feel like Havoc was pretty limiting.
So Havoc may have been a pretty big factor of holding back the original CK. So Havoc is a separate is it a separate company, or is it just a separate utility within CK?
Havoc is not a part of this creation engine at all. I mean,
Oh,
creation
okay.
kit at all. Bethesda doesn't own it. It was its own company, and then Microsoft bought it out shortly before Fallout 4 launched, if I remember correctly. It's entirely separate thing. You basically can't get access to it at all, and that's why we can't really do new things, is because we can't get to Havoc behavior tools. So instead, we have to use, well, like I said, you make the same file names and everything's set up so that it can just know to use it. It being the creation engine.
That makes sense. And that goes to what we was talking about before about the companies who have been burned by subcontractors. I know that's the wrong word, but these different companies that kind of own the key to unlocking the game, right? So if you want Unreal Engine, you got to buy Unreal Engine. Do you know any more information of what they got? Like, because if they're getting rid of Havoc, did they say it being something they've created, or are they switching over to another company?
I don't entirely know. This is the information is just from what I've heard about them talking about it before.
Mm-hmm.
Because Havoc is owned by Microsoft, so they could use Havoc if they wanted to. But I think they like the idea of creating their own animation system in-house so that they can, I guess, just do more with it and have the animation system be less taped to the side of it like Havoc is currently. Havoc also handles all the physics, so if you drop a gun on the ground, that's the Havoc engine controlling that.
Got it. That's where I remember Havoc. I'm thinking about like in the render window when you do Havoc items and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I was like, God, why does that sound so familiar?
And
That is how little I do animation.
I think the original Dead Space uses Havoc engine as well.
Oh, really?
If I remember correctly. So remember, if you go on like 0G, stuff will start floating around.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, that was Havoc. I could be wrong. But yeah, the current Havoc we have, that's from 2013, I believe. And it's pretty outdated. I mean, that's what they were using at the time, because that's like when the game came out, pretty much, 2015. But it's pretty janky. It has some compression to it, and you don't get the crispness that you otherwise would see in your 3ds Max view whatever.
Got it. So it's like a NIF file or something. It's compressed down.
Yeah, it's an HKX file, and it's compressed animation, and so things don't always come out as nice as they otherwise could.
Right.
There can be jitter to things, shaking, that
frames missing, and
just stuff just compressed, like a YouTube video.
Yep. Yeah, everything's about compression. I've done a lot of audio, and they just want it jammed to the brim. They want them all to be the same level for everything.
Yep.
Unfortunate. Well, speaking of these companies working on their mod platform, which I think may be an incentive for them to do CK2 a little more user-friendly. Well, as far as documentation on it, like you can hover a button and it can tell you something, or things within it that are a little counterintuitive. Even a map of keys, left arrow is how you move dialogue up and down. Just things that you don't really get the information out unless you hunt for it. I mean, I'm sure it's hard to gauge after you've been doing it for so many years.
Oh
of
yeah, I
like,
know exactly where everything is and what it does.
yeah, and it's from someone who's learning it myself. Just those little things where I get videos for all the big stuff, like, okay, this is how you build a character, this is how you build a house, this is how you do the mesh. Is all great. But when it comes to, oh, you can actually double the object window, make two of them if you wanted to, which is really
Oh
useful.
yeah,
But that's just something no one would
the
think to
object
teach, because
window.
once you know it, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. You wouldn't know that.
Yeah, just right click all the things, see what happens.
Yeah,
See what options pop up. Oh yeah, I guess it could be pretty daunting to look at when you don't know anything about it.
absolutely, because it's not as pretty and fun as it is in the game, right? At least you do have a render window, because I remember old school modding is just looking at README pages that you're changing numbers on.
Yep.
What do you think about the compatibility going into this? Since it's not, I don't want to say professional, because modding is still off of people's free time and energy and what they can do and can't do, but integration is going to be a little bit different this time around, knowing that collections are an idea and a thing, and also there's more space to find places to mod where you're not jumping on other people's toes.
Yeah, that is a tough one. I just don't know how it's gonna work in terms of modding planets.
Right?
I just like pick a planet. There's like 1,000 of them. You so like pick one at random, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and then load that into the render window. I have no idea how it works.
Yeah, it's interesting to think too, because someone brought up, you have the little world, which is probably a render of what the world actually looks like, but a smaller version of it, like a smaller map of it when you're up
Hmm.
and looking for a landing place. But how would you go about modding that little world? Would you create the full world and then it has a program to bring it down so you look at it like it's, a smaller representation of it in some window? There's a lot of questions within.
Yeah, I mean it's also a question of can we even do that because it's
Ooh.
a procedurally generated planet.
Hmm.
Would we need to, if we wanted to like add a building, would that be needed to be added into the thing? I have no idea. Maybe because they did say they have areas on a planet that are entirely handmade and handcrafted. So
That
it's got
was
to be some way.
the lead designer, right? He was talking about how they, instead of having a random encounter as being like one person help him find so and so, or go a fetch quest
Yeah.
basically, where instead it'll be a whole town that's created and asking for something that's in another entire location, um, where you can go and.
Yeah, and it's just generated.
Right, and so I wonder what kind of, options you would have inside that, to change, "Oh, I want 3 buildings. I want them to be, 2 stories, brown and the main color." It's like, how deep can you really get with something like CK and those kind of variations? I don't know.
Yeah, I
Answer
have
my own
really
question
no
there.
idea because it it's going to be pretty wild. We might just have to go about it with the idea of what he said. You have to make your own random encounter
Mhm.
and then somehow add that into the story manager of some kind. That's what they call it in Fallout 4. That's how random encounters are implemented. So I have really no idea.
Yeah, and is so the story manager, does that kind of work like a loot box, or where you just kind of click or just randomly rolling the dice essentially until it rolls on that number, and then it rolls another number to see what random encounter happens, kind of thing?
I think it mostly just checks various conditions where like it's a story manager. So
Hmm.
like say you wanted to do institute themed something or another, you would only want it to take place if the institute is alive, I guess.
Right.
I haven't messed with it a lot, but you would have random encounters triggers set up in the world associated to that random encounter, and it would check to see if it would be allowed to happen, and then it would randomly decide if it does.
Got it. Elaborate dice rolling.
So it sounds like they've taken it to a whole other level.
Hmm.
They're doing 40 chess here.
It just bends my mind because I look at the CK and look at how it loads just one town, how long it takes to get an internal space, or going into the Diamond City, how insane it is to load that up and do any modifications inside it.
Oh yeah, it can take a while.
What does it take to load a freaking planet?
Yeah, that's a good point. You probably can't view it from space. You would just go down to the whatever cell you're in. Kind of the same thing as Diamond City.
Maybe they break it up as like a north hemisphere, southwest hemisphere, or how big would the tiles be? Maybe they.
That's another question I had. I don't know the answer to. Our cells, they're 4,096 units by 4,096 units, and it's a square.
Mm-hmm.
You can't square around a sphere.
Oh, watch how you're going to get into flat earthers.
Well,
I found the answer.
Starfield, they're not flat, okay? In Starfield, at least in the game, they're spheres. But yeah, it's something I just don't know the answer to. They can't be square, then they have to be triangular, I guess. So it's a geosphere. No idea. I mean, can you walk around the entire planet? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, if they don't let you fly around the atmosphere, my thinking is you can.
It would render as you go. I mean, that's how Fallout 4 works. It just renders I believe on PC it's a 5x5 grid of cells around you at all times. Console it might be 3x3. I don't remember.
Right, because that's the LOD, right?
Yeah, and then anything out of the cells, it switches to LOD, and it's pretty bad looking.
Yeah.
But in Starfield, it looks way better.
Yeah, it actually looked like it had a scenic, and no matter what LOD I've downloaded, it just looks dramatically jankier between the lines. I don't know what it is. Like, it looks beautiful once you get to that certain point, like once you're beyond the initial, but you always see that line as you're running up towards it, of things just popping up out of the sky.
Which makes me think about, if these aren't squares and they're now triangles, you can really smooth out those edges with triangles instead of a hard-lined square.
So more like
potentially,
like meshes.
Yeah, I guess.
With triangle. I'm just trying to translate it to my layman self of understanding it, because I know meshes and I know roughly triangles from doing a little bit of Blender, but so the original one, what they use, just squares?
Well, I mean, the shape of the cell is squares, but everything's a triangle. When you make a mesh, it needs to be simplified down to triangles. The game can run bigger polygons, but for optimization purposes, you want it to be running triangles because that's what it knows best. It's the simplest shape.
And it's malleable because you can go many different angles with the triangle. Square is a little more limiting of wrapping around a post or something.
Yeah, that's what's easiest for your graphics card to render. So, and then I guess to bring it back around to the original question, compatibility, I believe it was. I don't do any collections. I don't have a problem with my mods being in collections. That's fine. But when I make a mod, it's generally entirely standalone. And I only guarantee that it works with the vanilla game.
Right, and you're in an interesting
that's about
territory.
As much time as I have.
Of course, and that's pretty common consensus. There's a few people that I've talked to that have been pretty hardcore against collections.
Yeah, I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion is it's kind of a free for all once you let it out there, right? You're trying to get your idea across, but coming from someone who does story mods, you could understand that if they're really into trying to create this very scenic moment, this noir type of feel to it, and they're trying to create something for you to experience the way they want you to. It's freaking impossible to do if you have, anime girls running around.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen like people be like, do mod reviews, and they've got this huge tactical vest on, this very
modern SWAT
woman, and that and there's grass everywhere, and the sun is amazing, and everything's super vibrant. I'm like, it works for them, perfect. That's all I care about. It can be difficult though with animation because there's mods that change the human skeleton to something else.
Mm,
And when you're an animator, you're working with the normal Fallout 4 skeleton. So when
yeah.
you have a mod that makes someone really short or something, things can get super wonky. And that's the kind of thing where I'm like, I don't have the time to reanimate everything to work on that skeleton. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, they said it, I forget that like everyone's a certain height, I think. Like all NPCs are pretty much all one height.
Yeah, they can vary. They all have like a scale of one, but you can change the actor's scale, no problem. But when you change the actual skeleton scale
hmm.
or change it at all, that's where things are a huge problem.
Interesting, because I was talking to someone and about they had an idea of starting a playthrough as a mutant, right? But I thought the same thing. I said if you're larger, because I know kids can't use everything
A
in
mutant.
Fallout 4 animation. A mutant would be larger, so I can't imagine it working well with sitting or using other
Yeah, it wouldn't
objects.
work at all because the super mutant skeleton is way different from the human skeleton.
Hmm.
Guns, first person probably wouldn't work at all. Third person would only halfway work, pretty much. It would be a disaster.
I think you've just killed his dreams instantly.
I'm sorry. Play as a synth. That
Play
shares the
as a
same
synth.
skeleton.
Damn right. I was actually saying, I was like, well, maybe you could do like the cheesy way where you'd be like a runt of the litter and take the human skeleton as big as you can and just deform them.
Yeah, you can be a human skeleton with a retextured human body.
That's right.
Be a super mutant. There you go.
That reminds me of the old one where they use the train hat for an NPC.
Oh yeah, Fallout 3.
that's that's innovation.
I love that. That sounds great.
Yeah, that's what makes CK and Bethesda feel like Bethesda games.
Yeah, I like hearing that. People will point that out and be like, "Wow, how unprofessional." I'm like, "What? No, that's amazing.
Nah,
I love that."
that's the MacGyver of the industry right there.
Oh yeah, I want to see some of that in Starfield.
Yeah, that's
Some crazy weirdness they put together.
they have like a tauntaun, but if you actually look at the skin underneath, it's just a NPC walking on all fours. Yeah, I really hope there's some good, some solid memeable moments in it. Oh, so we got collections. What about the marketplace? I mean, we've heard the rumors that they're kind of gearing up for that, and I think regardless if they're doing it anytime soon or not, it's something that I think will be in their purview down the line. What's your opinion on that, on paid modding?
Paid modding. That's an interesting one. I think it's fine, really. I mean, modders have like Patreon and Copy or Ko-fi or something links,
Yeah.
and they have a PayPal donation thing set up on the Nexus.
Yep.
You see that a lot. I don't really see any problem with people trying to get at least some sort of return on their huge time investment because it takes an extraordinary amount of time to do some crazy modding. I guess that can depend on what you're doing. So the paid mods thing it feels kind of like a slippery slope. I'd say I don't think anyone should be modding with the desire of making money off it.
Right.
I feel like you're going in with the wrong intentions.
I don't think you'll make it if you really have that intention. It's
Yeah.
There's a lot of grinding to it.
Yeah, don't quit your day job on that one. Personally, though, I'm not sure we'll ever see a Neeher mod be paid for. But,
There we go.
I make mods for the fun of it. But I mean, if some pocket change were to come from it, well, that's just icing on the cake, I guess.
Right. My thought is if they do it right, there could be benefit to the community in general. But if they do it how I think Microsoft would want to do it, I think there could be some gouging.
How
Like
would Microsoft want to do it?
well, so we had Bethesda who kind of stepped in there, got their feet wet with the Creation Club, right?
Creation
And
Club, yeah.
And I think they were close in a way where I think if you took mods and you picked the ones that the community was really all about, you put voice acting to it and you made it actual lore in the game. So you said, okay, you guys really like this way where this is going. Let's see if we can take it, put some lore in that makes it what we want. And now you have content that is lore. You can pay whatever for it, but it's now part of the game. So now you're feeding into the communities. I always imagine that with like Skyrim, if you had 10 years of them going and adding mods to the lore that was appropriate for their system, well, they would have just had 10 years of lore that they would have been making money on instead of re-releasing Skyrim a bunch of times.
That's true.
But Microsoft, if I thought they would take it over, my thought would be they would go more towards the what's the most popular game for modding? They look like blocks to me. It's
Roblox?
No, close though.
Or Minecraft?
Minecraft, thank you.
Minecraft.
Like the Minecraft store.
I was like, I don't think that's not Microsoft. But yeah, Mojang. I've seen their marketplace. It's huge.
Exactly, where they'll let anybody and everything, and they'll just take a portion of the profit without really investing anything into the mod itself and having any use other than we just want to get paid. You know what I mean? Like, I feel if they would go deeper with the Bethesda idea of just making a really solid lore-friendly mod that they can include in their official lore, there would be an actual benefit to paying, opposed to just saying, hey, we're just going to, every mod that comes out, we're going to try to attach a bill to.
Yeah, I have no idea how this marketplace is going to work. We'll see in time, but yeah, I don't really fully expect to be on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I guess only time will tell.
Yeah, I've never had so many polarizing answers on that question. So I'm always curious how people feel about it, because there's some people who are hardcore, like no, or absolutely if it lets me retain my mod's integrity. That's the same person who doesn't.
That's the way to go about it.
Yeah,
in my opinion, anyway.
If I can have this not be just taken and someone else mod it and I get to keep my integrity, then sure, paid mods is the way. So it's a very interesting answers I've gotten from that one.
And as long as I could still make normal free mods.
Exactly. That's basically the crux of my argument. You have all free mods, but then Bethesda picks the ones that people love, puts their lore on it, makes that voice acting with it, maybe even use the same voice actor so it feels even more authentic, and just invested a little bit into it. Oh yeah. That would be great, right? Instead of us having to, walk the border of copying famous people's voices, luckily I haven't seen too much of that, but it's going to happen. AI,
you mean like generating it?
Yeah, generating it. Like AI. Speaking of AI.
Good segue.
New things, yeah, right? New things popping out every day. Have you used any AI tools for modding?
I have not used any AI for modding. I did try it once. Mm-hmm. It was for one more recent mod I'm working on, which adds a new Pip-Boy. I was trying to get ideas, so I was using Dolly 2 for coming up with a design for the Pip-Boy, and well, that just turned out very poorly and it was just a disaster. So I gave up on it entirely, drew it myself, drew up a couple sketches of an idea.
Yeah, Dolly 2 is a little, I use it because you can patch pictures up. So I use like Deep AI or something to get some fun photos and ideas. And if I like it, you can use Dolly 2 to make them larger or change certain parts of it. That's what it's most useful for me. But as far as the quality, I don't know. It's just not up to par with like Midjourney or.
But yeah, I have not used AI. I don't really see myself using AI either, really. My areas of modding, it's 3D modeling, textures, animations.
Well, 3D modeling is coming. NVIDIA's working on that.
I've seen the NVIDIA thing, but the modeling part's really fun. I wouldn't want to just have a AI make it. AI, they can make a cup for me or something. Sure, they can do something like that real quick.
You're in it for the love of the game.
Yeah, if it's like a gun, people want the whatever's in my head translated onto the screen.
And the animation for it. So yeah, you have to model for the gun each component essentially, right? Everything that's going to be active.
Everything they see.
So maybe if the 3D modeling gets well, you can at least get a framework for it and then break the individual pieces up to do it. once again, I'm shooting from very little experience of 3D modeling. So in my brain, I just cut up the pieces of the gun and make them move around independently, but I'm pretty sure
There
that's
you
not
go.
how it works.
If only it was that simple. Oh yeah, and then I guess what we were talking about earlier, AI generating voice. I've seen what it's capable of, and it's pretty crazy. But at the same time, I I would probably never ever use it for one of my mods. Generate the protagonist, the sole survivor's voice at all.
Mhm.
I know Courtney Taylor, the female voice protagonist, would not be a fan of that, big time.
Mhm.
Brian T. Delaney, probably the same. I mean, it's his life pretty much. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it, and making it and releasing it for people to download. At first, when it came out, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be amazing," and then you think about it, and you're like, "Well, it's kind of a gray area, and I'm gonna stay out of it."
Absolutely gray area. As I said,
um,
I've done voice acting, going on CCC or whatever and doing things here and there. And I just think about it a little bit different. And you have the same concept too, is if you go ahead and do that, sure, it's fine because you're not getting paid, it's a mod. It's a little more forgiving right now. But you're also taking away from opportunities from beginning voice actors that
yeah.
need the free work to kind of get their feet in the door. So I think that's going to be a big loss. And same with programmers with ChatGPT. As that gets better with coding, you're going to lose a lot of
Oh yeah.
people wanting to come in and learn to do it.
Learn to do it. Yeah, that's not something I've ever thought of. I know, there's modders that are using AI tools or ChatGPT 4, for example,
Mhm.
to create new modding shortcuts and code and quicker, save time on that. But they're not new to coding themselves. They're already a god at it, pretty much. They're the masters. So they're using ChatGPT 4 to train it to be able to help them with more mundane stuff.
Right.
But yeah, I never even thought about newcomers to the scene.
Yeah, there's not too many entry points.
They're like, why would I bother doing that when the ChatGPT 4 can just do it for me?
Yeah, I don't have to talk to anybody, waste time on people who sometimes are there, sometimes they're not. If I can just do it by myself, it really doesn't leave much incentive for main companies, I think game companies too, to invest in new coders or anything like that when they can go, well,
That's a good
we
point.
have one professional coder and we can have him do a whole bunch of shortcuts for us for mundane stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I feel like the voice acting one, that's totally separate. That I feel like I wouldn't want to use an AI for that. I've worked with voice actors in the past, and they always bring something to the table that I didn't think about.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
oh, that's way better than how I envisioned it. Let's go with that. Whereas if it were an AI, it would do whatever I told it.
And so there's no blending of ideas.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to bring themselves anything new to the mod if it was just an AI doing whatever they told it to do. Yeah, when it comes to voicing, and I feel like most modding groups have the same idea. I know some settlements, for example, when that 11 Labs thing first came out, I remember I teased Cyric with the idea of, oh, what if the voice protagonist actually said Aiden or Jake.
Right.
But then King Gas put his foot down. Or like, we're not doing it. And we're like, all right, that's all we needed to know.
Yeah, he
Go
has a
on
good
with
moral
that.
compass for that too. Yeah,
Oh
he's
yeah,
talked
I mean
about
that's
that
why
a
he's
couple
the
times.
project lead. He's the leader, and he's amazing at it. And he really makes you see the other side of it. And that's what I was talking about earlier. I was like, oh yeah, I guess maybe this is not a good idea. And then I know I'm also part of Fallout London. We're using real voice actors. We're not AI generating things. It's gonna be pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah, you guys, they just had a trailer, what, a few months ago?
Probably. I mean, a couple weeks ago we put out a quarterly update video. We do one every quarter. And then we also had an April Fool's ones yesterday.
We're releasing now. Get on there.
I was like, here's the big gameplay trailer. And if you haven't seen that, be sure to check that out.
Oh, that's cold-blooded. I'm surprised actually more mod author big team like Sky Oblivion and whatnot didn't use that opportunity. Like, we're dropping tomorrow out of nowhere. So you doing animation as well on Fallout London?
Yeah, handling a lot of the guns and probably some character animation stuff too. Well, actually, I already have done plenty of that too, but plenty more to come, and that should be pretty cool. Can't wait for that to come out.
Is there? I mean, I know there's never a rock solid date, but is there a time frame they're looking at?
Just this year. We're doing
Just this year?
2023.
Awesome. So
This year, yeah.
you guys have some time this year, and then Sky Oblivion is what, 2 years?
I suppose.
Yeah,
sure.
I think they just had a trailer on it, where they said they were going to release in 2 years. So that's 2 giant out of all the big mods that are out there. That's only 2 that's actually had dates.
Well, and then also Sim Settlements Chapter 3 is also this year.
Of course, but that's not. I was talking more of like entire
Huge
world
making. Space.
And don't get me wrong, Sim Settlements is absolutely mammoth. It's a whole nother game inside a game. But when you're talking about something like London, where you need as many animators creating new animations and modelers making new cars, of course, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, our guy Edge, who makes a lot of the cars, is amazing. The stuff he makes is absolutely insane. It's crazy what he's been creating for the team. Just as props, because
I gotta take a look at that.
It's just placed around the world space. You got all kinds of cars and a bus and stuff. Yeah, so check out the videos. Even the most recent quarter update video has a couple cars in it. He shows off.
Edge, I like the name too.
Yeah, it's Edge UK, and then I think there's some numbers. I don't remember. Edge UK 90 or something.
I may have to go check him down now. I'd be interested in his car animations, or not animations, textures or skins or everything really. It's 3D.
Yeah, modeling and texturing he handles. Yeah, it's crazy the stuff he does. He's got an art station. You know the website ArtStation.
Yeah.
I
haven't really dug into much. It's time absorbers when I fall into things like that.
Oh yeah.
I got one more for you. If you can have any utility mod or playable day one of Starfield, what would you shoot for?
Day one. I think if it doesn't support it right off the bat, I think the most important thing to me would be an ultra wide mod. I have an ultra wide monitor. It's great for animating 3D modeling and stuff. And I remember watching one of the more recent Starfield videos, the one where it's Todd and there's gameplay in the background. And someone had an ultra wide monitor because they're developers,
right? And
they were playing Starfield, but it was still 16:9, and they had giant black bars on the left and right side of the screen.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
And I was like, that got me kind of concerned. I don't know if maybe it was because they were maybe testing it on Xbox, maybe, or if at least and whenever that was filmed, that build doesn't support ultra wide yet. I don't know.
That'd be a giant oversight.
But I'm really hoping ultra wide is supported day one. And I mean proper ultra wide. I don't mean like it's stretched across the screen. The UI needs to be able to adjust to it.
They are a little renowned for leaving that to modders sometimes, some of that stuff.
Yeah, I got True by 9 for that.
Yeah.
And whatever flawless widescreen is another one.
And those mods, I'm like, I'm glad they exist. I think it's wonderful what people have done, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, really, Bethesda? Really?
Well, I mean, it was 2015 when that came out. Ultra-wide monitors were pretty new, I guess. But
True enough.
Much more commonplace.
But that's something that I would think, that's the one where Bethesda should reach out and be like, hey, we would love to just buy this mod off of you because, you got the framework for it. We want to add it to our existing games. I mean, it's the right thing to do in that case. That's where I think of the line for paid mods are, where it's such a utility mod that should be incorporated by the company anyway. Like they would probably invest to make it happen anyway down the road, especially with a long-lasting game. That, come on, do a kickdown for someone who's taken the time to do the gritty modding. It's not as fun as dialogue questing or anything like that. So yeah, I have nothing but respect for utility modders.
Yep. So I think that would be it.
And they're some of the fastest people.
Oh yeah, they're quick on it because they probably encountered that problem themselves and they have the know-how to do it.
Mhm.
So they're like, all right, let's do this real quick so I can play the game the way I intended.
So what was it for Xedit? It was like not long after the Fallout 4 came out that it was like out.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much
It's like a
because
month.
it's almost the same as Skyrim, so the engine, I mean, so the forms, all the stuff's going to be mostly the same. So I could at least pump something out there so people can get started in using it. And then they're updating it all the time. So
The CK was like a 6 months to a year later.
yep, it was a solid 6 months after release. I remember it was April when it first came out, and that's when I really jumped into modding. And when it comes to Starfield, I'm probably not going to jump into modding until the CK2 is out.
Yeah, fair enough. Especially for you, because you deal with so much incorporating like the animation of things in it, and you kind of need the whole
That's
package.
going to be a whole new learning experience.
Yeah,
And there's the tools too. You know, you got probably have to wait for tools to be made
mm-hmm.
because I don't make the tools.
Right. But I mean, as I said, I think there's so much hype on this. As long as they don't completely like you play the game, you're like, what the hell am I playing? What is this? As long as it's not like that, I'm pretty sure the modding community is just going to catch on fire. Like mods are going to be flowing
I think
super
we've
fast.
seen enough of it, enough of Starfield to know what we're going to be playing.
Yeah.
And I'm super pumped for it. Yeah, I'm going to be playing that as soon as it comes out, and probably totally vanilla for quite some time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna probably stream it and then hide in my cave, just recording lore and crap for the next month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that. That's the whole reason I started. I asked King Gath as soon as he had that opening. I was like, I did a little bit of modding back with Skyrim, and I've always wanted to learn, but I need a specific goal. If it's just my own idea, then I kind of I get to a point. I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then I just kind of let it go. But if it's for something bigger, I'm way more motivated. I like the idea of being a team modder. So yeah, I'm glad I got a part of the Sim Settlements group.
Yep, I have this whole scene I need to have animated. Yeah, can't say much, but
do you use mocap?
Yeah, we have a mocap suit. That's super handy. And then there's also plenty of hand keyframe animation I do as well. But the mocap suit is pretty much only good for dialogue. That's about it.
I know you used it for Jake picking up his gun, right? That was one of the
Jake picking up his gun.
The chain gun, the electric chain gun off the wall.
Oh, the laser cannon? No, that was a keyframe animation.
Oh, it was? Oh, okay.
I'd say the Berman scene with Berman and Big Gunner guy. I forgot his name.
Big Gunner guy. Oh, are you talking about the commander of the Gunners?
Yeah, Algernon.
Yeah,
so
Algernon.
Berman was all mocap. Jake in the chair was mocap. Algernon, that was him mostly doing idle animation, normal stuff, but the punch was keyframe animation.
Oh.
But it's all over the place. Mocap doesn't work for everything, but when it comes in handy, that's when I'll switch over to that. But like AI, I'd say it's a shortcut to doing a lot of things, but it's not exactly perfect for everything. And I don't want to get too used to using mocap, and I'll keyframe most things. So
you don't want to lose that skill, the keyframe skill.
So I can get better at it. Yeah, keyframe skill and just generally getting better at it. So,
well, that's some patience though to go through each frame.
Well, I mean, it's not like a 2D animation, flash animation, right? It's you don't have to do every single frame. You can do a frame here and a frame there, and it will spline blend it between the two frames, and then you make adjustments between those frames and for every little bone and everything. It still takes forever, but it's not exactly like doing it every single frame.
I mean, the patience to do that is just astonishing to me. I'm an instant gratification kind of guy. I need to see something quick.
Well, mocap. Our mocap system it's a home remedy. It's pretty janky, I guess to say. It takes a lot of cleaning you have to do, and there's still a lot of keyframe within the mocap itself that I have to do to make things look natural. But it is the shortcut that I mentioned before. It will record movement and it'll look super human and natural, normal body movement.
As long as your actor's normal body movement, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I do the acting myself because I know the limitations of our mocap system. So I know what not to do because it's gonna get upset and an arm's gonna flip around backwards or something. Even though my own arm isn't. But it's not the best thing in the world, but it records what I needed it to record, which is that natural human movement.
And does that go with kind of the technology for the specific mocap setup you have, or is that just a flaw within the general mocap?
No, yeah, that's just our pretty cheap solution of mocap. I'd say all mocap really just depends on the hardware of the mocap system. In our case, it's not very expensive, so there's a lot of cleanup and fixing to do.
Got it. But it still saves some time getting the basic movement.
Oh, yeah. If I were to do it by hand, it would take all day to do something simple. But it's always if the character is standing and moving around or whatever dialogue stuff. If they're sitting in a chair or something, that's when I'll just do it all hand keyframe. Because if they're sitting in a chair, I mostly just have to worry about, the waist up.
All right, Neeher. Well, I'll let you go. And once again, appreciate it. And I'm sure I'm going to be asking you more questions, especially when Starfield comes out. Get your thoughts on.
Yeah, as we get closer to Starfield, I think we'll learn more and know what is how modding is going to work in general. So,
hey guys, thank you for sticking with it to the end. It means a lot to me. This was a hard video to edit. This is my first long form. It'll get easier as I edit more of them. But yeah, I think it came out pretty well. And if you're here, I think you also think so too. So leave a like, subscribe if this is your type of content. And as always, stay safe, mod reckless.